All right, Helen, why don't we begin? So we're recording. Thank you all for joining us on this Veterans Day. Most importantly, to our veterans, thank you for your service. It's our pleasure to honor you today by offering this Veterans Career Conversations event, and we're so happy you could join us. My name is Sheila Lillis, and I'm joined by my colleague Helen Boyk, and we are part of the Career and Professional Development team here at Sacred Heart University. We're delighted to introduce you to our esteemed guest this evening, who will join us for a roundtable discussion regarding topics that we hope you will find helpful as you continue on your career journey. Upon introduction, I just ask that the speakers just wave to the audience. That would be great, just so everybody can see who they are. First off is Sergeant First Class Emilio Haka, who is currently serving as the station commander in the Wallingford Medical Recruiting Station. He enlisted in 1998 under Delayed Entry Program and attended basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, to become a mortuary affairs specialist. He served on multiple assignments during the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack and 2 during Operation Enduring Freedom. Officer Haka also spent time in the U.S. Army Reserve in Puerto Rico. He was also deployed to Iraq on 2 separate deployments from 2007 and 2009. During both deployments, he served as the collection point leader. Upon returning, he was then assigned as the Assistant Battalion Mortuary Affairs. He has a passion for working with the community and volunteered for recruiting duty in January 2010 and was assigned to the Los Angeles Battalion Huntington Park Recruiting Station and the Los Angeles, California Station. From there, he was assigned to the Miami Battalion Puerto Rico Company as station commander, and also survived Hurricane Maria, which terribly damaged the island and which is sadly still recovering today. Officer Haka's awards include the Meritorious Service Award, the Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, Army Good Conduct Medal, and Gold Recruiting Badge. Officer Haka will discuss integrating into civilian society, remaining curious and open to exploration. Tiffany Doherty is the head of Military and Veterans Outreach for Barclays. She joined the bank in 2019, charged with creating and implementing a strategy for veteran and military spouse hiring, retention, internal mobility, and community engagement. Prior to joining Barclays, Doherty led military employment and entrepreneurship efforts at First Data. During that time, the team won several national awards based on innovative programming and outcomes, including being ranked #1 on Military Times' Best for Vets Employers list in 2017, 2018, and 2019. In 2018, Doherty was appointed by the New York City mayor to the New York City Veterans Advisory Board and served as vice chair. In 2020, Doherty was appointed by the Secretary of the VA to the VA Advisory Board on Women's Veterans and the Board of Directors for Wounded Warriors Project. She is an alumnus of the 2018 George W. Bush's Institute Stand to Veteran Leadership Program and a member of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Hiring Our Heroes Veteran Employment Task Force. Doherty began her career as a U.S. Army traffic controller, serving in the U.S. and the Republic of Korea. After service, she spent 10 years in the career counseling field, serving diverse student populations in technical college and traditional universities, including Vanderbilt. Doherty spent 4 years at Wounded Warriors Project, leading a team of regional specialists in providing direct employment services to veterans with disabilities and their spouses. As a rehabilitation counselor and career coaching professional, Doherty has helped over 2,000 students and veterans find careers and move forward in their transitions. She completed her bachelor's degree at Austin Peay State University and received her Master of Arts in Rehabilitation Counseling from Assumption College. Tiffany will discuss marketing your experience and leveraging the art of networking. Giovanni Rosselli is one of the most highly sought after personal trainers and group fitness instructors in the country. He is a master instructor for a health coaching company, Institute of Motion, as well as its parent company, and is nationally certified and is also a nationally certified precision nutrition coach. He has a lengthy history creating content for major fitness brands such as Nike, 24 Hour Fitness, PT on the Net, SCW Mania, and Equinox, where he won the Educational Excellence by a Trainer Award and was nominated for Group Fitness Training Program of the Year. As a national educator, he regularly presents corporate wellness seminars and was voted 2020 Livestream Mania Best Male Presenter. A man of many talents, this former WWE wrestling superstar has also acted professionally alongside some of the world's top actors. His television appearances include NBC's Today Show and National Geographic Channel's Brain Games. Giovanni will discuss Veterans of Wellness, becoming your best self now and for the future. Jake Mazza graduated Sacred Heart in 2019 with a degree in finance. While at Sacred Heart, Jake interned at Skybridge Capital and upon graduation took a role as an investment management consultant at FactSet. Prior to attending Sacred Heart University, Jake was in the United States Air Force for 7 years, serving mostly in Italy and the Middle East, working in dispersing operations. Since leaving Sacred Heart, Jake has worked on giving back to veterans. He started the Veterans Business Resource Group at FactSet, which focuses on recruiting and retaining veterans, as well as creating a partnership with American corporate partners to ensure veterans get proper mentorship while they are preparing to transition into the public sector. Jake will discuss the power of informational interviews and offer negotiation. We'd like this event to be as interactive as possible, and we certainly encourage your questions. Please feel free to type them in the chat box, and we will discuss during the Q&A session at the conclusion of our conversations. Additionally, this event will be recorded and shared with our veteran population for future reference. We will now begin our conversation with Officer Haka, discussing integrating into civilian society, remaining curious and open to exploration.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Ms. Sheila. I'm just going to go ahead and start off. Number one, my topics include integrating into civilian society. Our remaining courses open to exploration will be, for example, if you're looking to join the civilian world and means job hunting pretty much, here's the good news. You as a service member, you are part of one of our best trained workforces in the world. You have skills that employers value: discipline, work ethic, teamwork. Your military experience also has given you training that you can put to work in the civilian world. Sometimes it can be challenging to sort of explain it in military terms going to civilian terms, but anyhow, that's how we have what we call credentialing online, which is, we call it COOLS. And I have the link I can provide it at the end of the session. The COOLS program pretty much helps you translate your military training to civilian training. It speaks to what employers are looking for and what they can understand, which also provides pretty much the difference of understanding what licensures you need for that specific job training. Here's a good example. Let me go to my next slide. In the civilian, especially doesn't require a license or certification. Here's what you should do. You don't need to pursue a credential, but having one may give an advantage it's worth checking into. Here's my second example. Your military training and experience already provides the necessary credentialing practice for the civilian job. Okay, here's what you should do. What you should do is, there may be additional credentials in our COOLS website that may give you the advantage towards that job field. All right. Here's my third example. Your training and experience provides certification in the field, but not license. So a lot of military jobs, whether it's Army, whether it's the Navy branch or the Air Force branch, they all provide training. We start off usually with basic training and then the advanced individual training. So throughout all of that time that you're serving, whether it's 3 years, 10 years, or 20 years into the service, you're getting a lot of experience. And experience goes from all sorts of levels, down to the basic level, all the way up to your advanced level, depending on what rank you're serving in. So now, since you have all of that wonderful training during your service time, what I usually hire and encourage to our new enlisted service members is, during that time, work on your degree. That way you can have a great resume combined with your experience and your education. So when you're out in the workforce, you're pretty much building your resume. So you're going to be a little bit better off, hopefully. It all varies. There's so many different jobs out there in the service. There's 150 to select for on the Army side, and I'm pretty sure the U.S. Other folks can speak about the Navy and the Air Force. There's also a lot of technical jobs and skills that you can acquire those skill sets while serving. Now, what I didn't speak about is I am a Army medical recruiter. So I do have additional information as far as I recruit for dentists, I recruit for doctors, nurses that already are working professionals, and we either enlist, we either get them as commissioned officers in the active service or in the reserve service. In addition to that, there's also scholarships, if you were not aware, for medical school, dental school, and some nursing careers as well. It's kind of hot in here. All right, so pretty much is a one-stop shop. The website is called Military Transition Service, and the course credential, and I can provide that to at the end of the meeting to Ms. Shayla. Is that correct?
Sure, that would be terrific. And even throughout the conversation, if you want to just pop it in the chat box during one of the other conversations, that would be great also. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Sheila,
I certainly learned quite a bit. The credentialing and the military transition as well. So those are two sites that we will certainly share in the chat box. And then all of those of you who have actually joined us this evening will certainly send an email along with the addresses also. So thank you, Officer Haka. Really helpful information. And as I said before, we'll be sure to share it with our entire student population. So I think next up is Tiffany, who will discuss marketing your experience and leveraging the art of networking.
And I'm going to take a little liberty here and just, we'll have a discussion and I'm going to weave some of that into this. But I'm here to say I loved the fact that we started off with Officer Haka talking about curiosity. I think that's really at the heart of what I want to talk about as we think about how do you market yourself and how do you network. And I'm going to go back and say when I started career counseling 15 years ago, I was very, very linear in my thinking and very directive in my thinking. And that's what Sheila and I talked about on our previous call when she mentioned the imagination gap. And I want to explain what that is. When I started career coaching 15 years ago, my advice was figure out where you want to be in 10 years, figure out the steps to get there, to the 10 steps to get there, and you start on step 1. And, that does work in certain fields and that works for certain people. That's not to dismiss that, of course, if you want to be a doctor, there's a long-term step-by-step plan for that. But as I have evolved in my own career, I can look back at the moments where I thought I had it all figured out and actually how it's unraveled. And I'd like to share some advice from that. And then I'll give you some tangible pointers on things that you can do to market your experience and to network. And Jake, I'm not going to step too much on informational interviewing, but I'll give some tangible places where people can find people to connect with. And then maybe you can tell them what they do then, right? Perfect. All right, good. But I look back and I say at 17 years old, I graduated from high school. And I had it all figured out for the first time. I joined the Army as an air traffic controller. It was a job where you got FAA certified, the highest paid job in the US that didn't require a degree. So at 17, I had it pretty well figured out. That was in 2000. I signed up for 6 years. 9/11 happened while I was stationed in Korea. And then I got out at the end of 2002 on a medical discharge, much earlier than I planned to leave the military in my career. And if you think about what was happening in aviation after 9/11, aviation was in a major recession. It was not a great time to be entering the field as a young air traffic controller, not quite 20 years old at this point. But all right, I regrouped. I ended up falling into a career in higher education. And I now say falling in, but I'll explain that's serendipity. But what I think serendipity is now, it has changed. I worked in that field for about a decade. Again, I know I'm rereading my bio, but hopefully giving you a little bit of light here is, I worked in that field for about a decade before I woke up and realized, I love what I do. I love career counseling. I found this knack that I'm good at, I need to do it with veterans. That's where I can have the greatest impact. I've been married to a special operations service member. I grew up in a military family and watched my father transition as a disabled veteran. And so there were a lot of reasons why I saw friends coming home, and I knew that's where I could do the most good. So I immediately had it all figured out. That meant I need to go to work at the VA and be, well, what do you do at the VA to coach people? I'll be a VA voc rehab counselor. And that means go to grad school for rehab counseling and go to work at the VA. And now I'll look back and tell you that in looking at my path, I've never worked a day at the VA. I've never worked a day as a civilian as an air traffic controller, and I'm so grateful. I never would have thought that I would work on Wall Street, and I now have a very Wall Street job, but I've been working in major financial services for about the last 5 years, doing great work in the veterans space. And so how did that all unravel, right? I look back and I think my path has worked out better than I could have ever imagined. And I've had more success than I could have ever imagined. And I share that to say that this idea of serendipity, sure, there's some luck involved in it, right? I met the right people along the way. But actually, what I think it really comes down to, and there's science here, I'm a believer in positive psychology, and I'm a believer in the chaos theory on careers, and we could dive into that and my time at Vanderbilt. But really what it comes down to is that curiosity. But here's the thing. So serendipity and curiosity, that sounds passive. Like I've just taken the pressure off of you. I don't have to come up with my 10-year plan anymore. It's kind of the opposite. It's like, I'm a yoga teacher on the side. I thought Giovanni might like that, for my fun time. But sometimes a pose can look really simple, but actually you're engaging every single muscle in your body. Curiosity is very, very active. It means staying incredibly curious about yourself. And you are a changing organism. Your priorities are changing and shifting all of the time if you're really paying attention. Some of the things that you like and you don't like and what energizes you may or may not change, but you have to stay really attuned to that. And then you have to stay really, really curious about what's out there and what's possible. Because here's the truth of the matter. None of us know very much about the possibilities for our own career out there, no matter how much, who we think we are. I was a career counselor for 10 years and I thought there was one option for me to go and coach veterans, right? And so I would say, how do you do that? How do you stay actively curious? I know that I want to be mindful of time. So one is start doing your homework really, really early. Start before you're asking people for a job. The best place to be is curious, is finding out what do different people do? What's their real day like? Thinking about how you spend your time and even your free time, what energizes you and what drains you, and really taking the time to understand that and getting curious about what other people do. And also understanding that progress moves at the speed of trust, that if you build a lot of relationships with people through what Jake's about to talk about, through getting involved in your community, through volunteerism, through things like the Veteran Network at your organization or at your college, at Sacred Heart. By getting involved in those and just building trusting relationships with people, that will present opportunities for you. That's part of the work of staying curious. Start reading job descriptions really early. Start reading what are companies really looking for in different kinds of jobs, and even in jobs that don't sound that interesting to you, but are in a field that you think you might be interested in, or a company that you think you might be interested in. Just consider that the work of curiosity. Don't over sterilize your own experience. So as I talked about marketing, I really wanted to say that is there's a lot of career advice out there for transitioning veteran or service members and for veterans. And yes, you do need to learn to speak civilian. Reading those job descriptions, talking to people will help you, but it drives me crazy, and many of us in the space, that people sterilize their military experience so much. And what I mean by that is you don't say what you really did in the military on your resume. They don't talk about I can't tell what their actual job was, or they give themselves a new job title that is a corporate title that doesn't really explain what they did in the military. Team leader is something that is in the military and translates. Telling me that you were the COO of your company doesn't make any sense. I'm going to be honest with you. So tell the truth about what you did. Tell people the stories. Think about what you really did in your experiences. So when you get to the interviews, that's a challenge for veterans or in informational interviews, is talk about what the team did, but spend some time thinking about what are the stories of what you did, that tell how you make decisions, that tell what energized you. What were the days when you were you at your best? And start telling people those stories. They'll be able to glean if you might be a fit for what they do. You'd be amazed at the opportunities that might find you when you're open with people. And leveraging the art of networking, I want to give a few tangible resources, and then I'm going to tell one more short story. I'm trying to be mindful of time, so I know we've got just a couple minutes left here, but a couple of places to go and find people to talk to do this work of curiosity. So one is LinkedIn. Do not underestimate LinkedIn. I have landed 2 great jobs through LinkedIn, one where they found me and one where I found them, right? But one of the things you can do on LinkedIn is you can look up under people, you can look up a company and look at people who their current company is the company that you're interested in, and their past company is the branch of service that you were in, or add all of the branches of service. That's a great way to find people who will be receptive because you have a common ground to start from. And that works really well on LinkedIn. I would also strongly recommend, I know you mentioned America's Corporate Partners. I'm also a huge fan of Vetterati. And I'll add this, I'm gonna add a couple of things to the chat when we get done, but Vetterati. It's a really easy, it's kind of the Uber of mentoring. You can pick people on the website, it schedules a time. You can schedule a time based on their availability and it connects you to a mentor. And start having conversations with as many people as you can. And then get involved in the networks in your area and in the industries that you're interested in. If you're interested in finance, so I am an active member of Veterans on Wall Street. We just had our annual symposium. We do events throughout the year. You can sign up to find out about events that are happening with Veterans on Wall Street. But get actively involved as early as possible. I'm going to tell you that, we talk about putting your best foot forward, but it's having these authentic connections when they're early enough that you're not asking for something is really where it can pay off. I know, I'll tell you the story that one of the first times that I was invited to speak at a really formal event in New York City was actually an event hosted by Veterans on Wall Street, probably 5 years ago. And the commissioner of New York City was moderating the event, and she showed up at the last minute, and she didn't ask any of the questions that we had prepared to answer. And I was relatively new to speaking at these kinds of events. And what I ended up doing based on the questions she asked was I ended up telling the story of what a hot mess I was in basic training. Like I almost failed basic for like 4 different reasons. I'll tell you guys, I broke my finger. Like this is the only joint you can pull a grenade pin with, and you have to pull a grenade. I broke the tip of this finger. I sprained my ankle. I couldn't shoot. There were 100 reasons. I was great once I got to the air traffic control brain stuff, but the body stuff wasn't working out so well for me. And I ended up telling this story because it was relevant to the question that I was asked. And I'm telling you guys today a bit about how serendipity works, because it's curiosity and it's authenticity. That event that I barely remembered and didn't think very many people showed up to, it was at PayPal's headquarters. I did not think much of that event. Over the course of the following 2 to 3 years, it led me to being appointed to the New York City Veterans Advisory Council because I left an impression on the commissioner that day that she contacted me later. And it led me to 2 or 3 years later when I was interviewing at Barclays. I got to the 3rd round interview and I didn't know the name of the person who was interviewing me. I couldn't find a photo of her. And she came down to the lobby to meet me and she said, "You don't remember me, but I remember you. You spoke at that event and I loved what you said." And I will tell you, that was not my most polished event. That was one of my most authentic events though. And so that's what it taught me, was be authentic with people. Don't sterilize yourself too much and stay really actively curious. Thanks.
Oh my gosh, that was super helpful. Helen and I would love to have you on our team, that's for sure. Because, so much of what you mentioned is what she and I obviously, try to relate to our students. And the one thing that I consistently say is, obviously not only know your story, but sell your story. So, kind of tell it and sell it at the same time. And to your point, I think, right, the only way to truly sell your story is to just simply be authentic and to be true to who you are. And I also loved progress moves at the speed of truth. Oh, at trust, I'm sorry. At the speed of trust. I thought that was like an incredibly powerful takeaway as well. So thank you.
Kevin, it's not me, so
It's fantastic though. And we actually have a networking event next week for our alumni network. And obviously where the entire focus will be, simply networking. And that's a really powerful statement. So thank you for sharing it. Okay, I believe Jake is up next, and he offer negotiations and the power of informational interviews.
Tiffany's definitely tough to follow up right now. I actually 3 years ago met Tiffany at Veterans on Wall Street, and she may not remember this, but it was at like PwC's headquarters. So it's a small world, and I think you all really need to know that about informational interviews. Um, get comfortable being uncomfortable when you're getting out there. That's the key, because your network's going to become your net worth down the line. I can't tell you how many times I've had a coffee chat with veterans or civilians. Honestly, it doesn't matter who you're reaching out to on LinkedIn. Tiffany made a great point, and you should reach out to people that definitely connect in your network. But I think the best informational interviews I've had have been with civilians who just happen to respond to my message. So just formulate a perfect pitch for people, whether you're using LinkedIn to reach out to them or using a friend of a friend, which I used several times throughout the whole process. Everyone goes through the same exact thing. They were in your shoes at one time or another. And I know it could have been 30 years ago where they're cold calling people to look for jobs or even writing letters, but everyone goes through this process. And honestly, as a veteran, I feel like we've got a leg up. And a lot of people think that we don't, but you don't know how many veterans are out there, especially if you're looking at Wall Street, ready to help you, or at least fight for you and be in your corner. One of my best friends on the street helped me get a job offer from Morgan Stanley. And we weren't best friends at the time when I went through the whole process to get the job. I actually met up with him for a beer on Stone Street in New York City. And he was an officer in the Army, and I was enlisted in the Air Force. There's really no relationship, but I was able to talk to him and be real with him, get to know him as a person. I had 2 nieces at home who I had been dying to see after I got out of the military, and he was more than happy to connect on that level with his children and talking about his experience there and how the transition's been for his family after he left. Just being able to relate to him on a real level versus just asking him questions about the job allowed me to really open that door for myself. A lot of the time you'll pick somebody's brain about the job. And of course I wanted to know everything about investment banking at the time because I thought that's where I wanted to be. I think you see a lot of individuals that enter investment banking after the military, and that's the first place you look to. But I really recommend trying to get the full scope of a bank if you're looking at banks or a financial services firm like Bloomberg, FactSet, Reuters. A lot of that stuff that you see in movies can be exaggerated, or, I don't think I'd enjoy working long hours. I'm not saying I don't work long hours today. I definitely work till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but I work with a lot of portfolio managers and investment bankers who work till midnight every night, and they're probably working the weekends too. And, work-life balance is important. So really look for a culture through these informational interviews that really, fits you, and understand what these people can provide to you during those informational interviews, because it can get lost on you during that whole process. I went through the whole entire investment banking interview process for Morgan Stanley, and it was tough. It was grueling. And by the end of it, I figured out that that's not where I wanted to be, even with an offer at the end of the day. And the people who helped get me there didn't hold it against me, who were veterans. They watched me over 3 years, just have coffees. I never asked for the opportunity. They actually just reached out to me after year 3 of talking to them, seeing if I wanted to work there. And no one's going to hold it against you. I think you need to just fight for every opportunity during these informational interviews and make yourself a known entity. And if you're going through these interviews and you can pitch yourself and you're well-spoken, the sky is the limit, because that's half the battle. A lot of people that you go through these interviews with, and Tiffany could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but don't know about your military experience. You really need to pitch it. Pitch how it can support any environment. If you're enlisted and you're going into a role that's entry level, I don't recommend pitching leadership instantly. If you're going into a managerial role, then definitely pitch your leadership, but show what you can bring to the table for any company they're going to. And this really leads into like offer negotiation, because recently, I got an offer from another company and I really didn't know how to handle it. In the military, you're going through your service and you just get promoted when you get promoted, when you've, helped out enough and looked good enough to promote to that next level. And when you're ready to handle those managerial roles. And you don't need to fight for a salary bump because that's just years of service and rank. So I didn't even know how to handle the situation, but that network that I developed, I reached back out to them. I asked them how they dealt with these situations, and I didn't want to leave the company I was at. I love FactSet. It's been unbelievable. It's a second family to me past the military now. So I wanted to know how I could basically match that salary while not leaving the company that I love. And I really went into it with the list of things that I've been providing to the company. I went to my manager, I went to the senior manager, I talked to them about everything. I provided them all the ways I was helping out. And what I thought would have been a tough process was over in an instant. They were more than happy to, meet me halfway on everything and make sure that I wasn't leaving because they saw me as an asset and they knew what I brought to the table after I listed it all out. No one's going to fight for you more than you. No one's going to fight for you as hard as you can fight for yourself in any of those situations. So you need to be ready to go to battle every single time when you're going to those negotiation tables. And people will try to pick that apart. I can't say that my manager didn't look for holes in my argument. She definitely did. And, that's her job. She doesn't want to, the company only has so much money to work with. So you have to be able to be level-headed in those situations and, bring other things to the table that you have brought, whether it's, even outside of what I do at work. I brought into perspective me starting out the Veterans BRG and how this is looking great for the company. And if you create those kind of networks, it can increase your net worth at the company because you're part of that company's image. And I don't think people talk about that enough. These groups are unbelievable and can help you really rise to the top a lot quicker than you would ever expect. I am getting FaceTime with people that I never expected to get FaceTime with because they value your input in the company. They value diversity. You could end up speaking to a CEO of said company, every other week, or I'm sure Tiffany will see this at Barclays. Most groups have an executive sponsor who you get to talk to on a regular basis, and having that person to lean on during these negotiations was crucial. And as a veteran, it's tough to get FaceTime with those individuals, but you should leverage that group because he was the first person to tell me that he's definitely debated, a job offer during his time at the company. He'd been here 20 years, but he knew that he loved the company and he knew he needed to fight for himself. So he walked me through everything he had done as well. So having those different perspectives when going to bat for yourself was key for me. It should be key for you going into the future. I know that first role, you're just going to be ready to take that job offer and take whatever they're willing to pay you. But, don't be quick to just accept, think about it, know what your worth is going into that role, and know if you need to be fighting for more. If it's a set amount across the board for an analyst, then know that you shouldn't have wiggle room right there. But as you go up the ranks, you'll definitely have wiggle room based on your performance. So know what you bring to the table every day and make sure that you've got that network behind you that can back you up when you're fighting for yourself.
Oh my gosh, terrific. Thanks, Jake. Yes, Jake and I had actually spoken a couple of days ago, and when we talked about offer negotiation, he shared with me his most recent discussions with his manager regarding compensation and, his potential to jump ship to one of his clients. And, I think to your earlier point about getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, obviously held true for you and good things have happened. So thank you for sharing. We're super grateful. And Giovanni, last but not least, he is going to talk to all of you about being a veteran of wellness, not only for today, but for your future self. So thank you for waiting, and we're happy to hear from you now.
Last but least, Jake, you thought following Tiffany was hard, and I have to follow all three of you. And I'm just a measly health coach and personal trainer. I don't have all these amazing stories that all of you are saying. So I'm extremely humbled and honored to be a part of this. I'm a slide geek, so if it's okay, I'm gonna try to share my slides. If it works, it works. Do you see it here? and we'll play it. You got them? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna obviously take a different approach based off of my my experience. So first off, thank you for all the veterans out there. I've done a lot of grassroots wounded warrior presentations and projects that I'm very proud of. And I put those pictures at the bottom because in my past life as a professional wrestler, I got to do some really cool professional wrestling events with some veterans and some wounded warriors. And that was a really great show that I was a part of. It was, USA, but the whole theatrical element to professional wrestling. So it was pretty cool to be a part of that. So this is the deepest ties that I have with the veterans. Like I said, I'm very humbled to be a part of this panel. So when we talk about the health perspective and what are we doing to heal our bodies when we're putting our bodies through such tremendous amount of stress. And obviously all of the veterans have put their bodies through an amazing amount of stress. So we look at the big four, and this is probably not a surprise to any of us. We look at movement, we look at nutrition, we look at recovery, regenerative strategies, and we look at stress management. Those are the four pieces to the puzzle that we want to look at when we're trying to live gracefully, when we're trying to age gracefully, when I call it corrective exercise. I work with a lot of clients, and I've worked with a lot of clients, and even myself, just having my body beaten as a professional wrestler, is what can I do based off of where I am right now to optimize my health and wellness? And we're going to do that through the big four. So, we talk about sitting, we hear about sitting and like what happens when we sit, why is sitting so bad? Well, first off, it decreases our stamina because our heart and lungs are transporting less oxygen. So we obviously want to do things to keep us up and keep us moving. This is the movement part. We don't have as much circulation and fatigue. Blood's not circulating as well. We're decreasing the blood that's pumped to the heart. Our bone density goes down. We're more brittle and susceptible to injury. So when we talk about movement, when we hear movement, why movement's important, it's not just, sitting is bad. Sitting is, doing all of this unfortunate stuff to our bodies. Our strength's going to decrease. We don't have to move anything. We don't have to force anything. So our ability to generate force is going to go down. And then we're all, at a postural disadvantage. It's very rare that we're going to sit up perfectly, straight for an extended period of time. And our reaction time goes down. So the less we do things, the less we move, and let's just take sitting out of the equation, just not moving enough, then all of a sudden, oh, I didn't see that step. Or wait, what did you say? I can't remember. And there's a metabolic effect, and there's a cellular effect, and there's a collagen effect, and there's also a digestion effect where there's an expression, you are what you eat. You're not what you eat. You are what you absorb, right? You are what your body can actually absorb. So all of these affect movement or lack thereof, which is why we want to keep moving, whether it's before we go to work, after we go to work, just intermittently throughout the day. And then we look at blood flow and circulation. And, those are the two things that always make us feel better, right? What do we say when we're about to work out? I'm going to get the blood flowing, right? And then when you get circulation and oxygen going through our body, that's what helps create health, throughout our joints and our systems. Now, just to give you a little extra here, vibration technology has been shown to reap a lot of benefits. You may have seen people using like these percussion guns where, you're putting the guns and it gives you a self massage. You see foam rollers and that's power plates and things like that. And all of these tools that are coming out have been shown to benefit a lot of injuries and a lot of orthopedic, dysfunction. And breathing matters, and breathing is important. I'm sure Tiffany, as a yoga instructor, could tell you, the importance of diaphragmatic breath and the importance of breathing, tapping into our sympathetic nervous system. And we need to tap into that, especially if we've gone through very stressful and traumatic things in our lives, is the importance of having a good diaphragmatic breath, not necessarily chest breathing, but breathing from the belly. And this is just a basic example of certain segments that are require stability and mobility through the body. And how many of us have come across a fellow friend, a colleague, and in your case, a fellow veteran, back pain, knee pain, and neck pain, right? It's very common. So we look at the stable segments and we look at that knee, we look at that yellow knee and say, well, that knee may not be the problem. That knee is maybe the pain caused by either above or below. What's above or below? The hip and or the ankle. And then the low back. Well, why do I have low back pain? You may have low back pain because of a dysfunction in the hip, or what's above that in the thoracic spine. So what we want to do is we want to look at a lot of mobility. We're not necessarily looking towards strengthening exercises. We want to look towards mobility exercises, and it's good to look at the feet. Some random facts here, which you may not know. I'm sure Tiffany knows these facts. Is a quarter of our bones are in our feet. 25% are in our feet. So start to take care of your feet more. And I can only imagine what all of your feet have gone through with the running, the jumping, the crawling, the sprinting, and that type. So we want to really look at the feet and take care of the feet. And just some basic compressional myofascial, rolling of things of the feet. We're drawing water into the area. And as we've learned, high pressure to low pressure is where it moves from. So the two biggest muscles in our body are our lats and our glutes. So we want to look at doing stuff for the shoulder and the hips and the butt. So when we talk about nutrition, right, it's the biggest nutritional challenges. This was a macro study done. And Sheila, if I'm running over, do you just cut me off? The biggest nutritional challenges that were done over literally hundreds of thousands of people. The first nutritional challenge was, I eat because I'm emotional and I'm stressed out. 63%. 53% said there was a lack of planning. 52% said I had cravings. 51, I snack when I'm not hungry. 49, I eat too quickly. Sweet tooth, I eat out too frequently. Large portions. I don't have time to prepare meals. I like my wine, alcohol. I don't know what I should eat. I don't like to cook. I don't know how. Family peer pressure. And then unsupportive environment. So what I want to demonstrate here is very few of us don't know what I should eat, right? Only 16% is I don't know what I should eat. We know what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat. But look at the top there. It's because we're eating emotionally and we're eating stress. So we have to try to combat those challenges and figure out, why are we doing what we're doing and when are we doing it when we're doing it. And here's just some basic recommendations for nutrition as far as, brain health, memory, and, PTSD is real. So I wanted to just give you some healthy tips here. Oils, virgin oil, olive oil, coconut oil, showed to actually reverse cognitive defects. Nuts, almonds, I'm sure some of you seen this. You're like, yes, I'm doing the nuts and almonds. I got some olive oil. I'm doing good. And oily fish, right? DHA, we hear about fish oil a lot. Wild caught, obviously the best. And Dr. David Perlmutter is a very famous doctor that looking at brain health and memory. And he says it drastically improves memory and cognition. Berries, we call it a memory and cognition superfood. Fermented foods, probiotics, the kimchi, the sauerkraut, pickled fruits and vegetables. And obviously the leafy vegetables, the broccoli, avocado, right? So good fat is good. It's not necessarily bad. Not all fat was created equal. And Perlmutter actually calls that the anti-Alzheimer's part of the anti-Alzheimer's trio. Eggs aren't bad. Eggs aren't bad. Cholesterol is not bad. That's a whole other topic for another day. But eggs are shown to help actually brain health and memory. And you can call it turmeric, you can call it turmeric, but you probably heard turmeric and ginger, something like that is actually helped to reduce inflammation in the body. And then there's a lot of recovery strategies as well. You can see some of those pictures. There's cryotherapy, there's compression boots, there's infrared saunas, there's vitamin drips. There's all these type of nice recovery and regenerative type strategies that we're using on our athletes and our former fitness enthusiasts. I won't get into this. This is basically different ways we exercise affects different parts of our brain. If I do cardio, if I do yoga, if I do strength training, it actually affects different parts of our brain. Where if you want me to share this slide with anybody, I feel free to share this slide. It's actually pretty interesting. And then obviously I tried to fly through that, but thank you for your time, and thank you very much for hearing me go on and on about nutrition and exercise when we know, okay, he's telling me to eat more vegetables. But
Oh my gosh, but it's so helpful, and it's really important. I had a meeting today with a student who was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but she felt as if she wanted to begin, her employment search journey, and but yet I could certainly tell that she was feeling a bit fatigued by the process. And I think, to your point, right, especially when we have our students and our student veterans kind of beginning their career journeys, it's really important to, obviously, which we talked about, right, know your story, tell your story, sell your story, but also have the confidence to do so. And in gaining that confidence, obviously, wellness plays a very important role, both mentally and physically. So that was really helpful. Thank you. If there was, that was a tremendously informative presentation, but Giovanni, if there was one, key takeaway that you could offer to our audience this evening, if somebody said to you, what's like the most important thing that we can do on a daily basis for ourselves, what, besides standing up, because I heard that loud and clear, and I actually have a desk that moves, so I try to stand as much as I can. But is there, one simple thing that each of us could do each day, to be sure to pay attention to ourselves?
yeah, so to kind of piggyback off that, it's moving intermediately, and we get caught up in, I'm going to sit, I'm going to stand, I have a standing desk, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Is just literally every hour, every couple hours, and we've heard this before, is just get up, even if it's one of these. I always recommend, I'm a morning workout person. I feel like when you get that movement, mobility, yoga in the morning, it sets you up for the rest of the day. So try to do something. It doesn't have to be an hour workout. It doesn't have to be a half an hour workout. It could just be 5 to 15 minutes of stretching and breathing, and something to set your intention of the day. And then be very attentive of just moving intermittently throughout the day, because even if you get a great exercise in for an hour and then we sit most of the day, then you're 17 hours to 1 hour. That's not exactly doing well for your body either.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Now I think we'll probably move to the Q&A portion of our evening. And I know Helen has been monitoring the chat box and perhaps has some questions for our panelists. And by all means, anyone else who has joined us, if you haven't placed your question in the chat box, by all means, feel free to ask our panelists your question as well.
There were some questions that came through. One of them's for Jake. How and what do you prepare for with informational interviews?
I would say I kind of stalk people, to be honest. I look at their background, whether it's LinkedIn, even social media, if I happen to have them. I get information if I have a personal connection with the individual, just so I know how to connect with them on a personal level. And I think every time I always have a few questions that I've prepped prior about the company that I'm interested in, that they work at. But I usually try to connect on a personal level first with all the information that I have before I really get into the company aspect of that, because if you can connect with somebody on a friendly level, you can keep that relationship alive. You can message them every couple of months and just check in how they're doing, and they'll probably do the same, honestly, as your career progresses. And it's happening more and more as I've gotten further along at FactSet. I've noticed these questions or messages come through a little more often. And I felt like it was one-sided a lot when I was in college for 3 years, messaging everyone under the sun, trying to get myself in the door somewhere.
Hey, Jake, if I could just add to that too, I've always given this advice. We're all a little self-obsessed and we're all a little narcissistic. Let's just throw that on the table. Ask people about themselves, about their story, about what's worked for them, and then ask them for advice. But if you get them talking about themselves, that's a great place to start from.
That's absolutely true because you do get a lot more information from just asking folks about themselves, and they're always willing to share. So that's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's,
Okay, and I think Genesis, I think he had a question that he wanted to ask.
Oh yeah. Hello everyone. I just want to say thank you very much for hosting this. It's very informative, and thank you for just taking the time out of your evening on this special day to talk to all of us. I'm Genesis. I am a senior here at Sacred Heart University, and I am actually currently an Army reservist. So I do both school and Army at the same time, and it's really great. I really value my time, all the weekends and all the trainings that I do. But one thing I'm wondering about is, as a current senior trying to transition into the workforce, are companies, like flexible on military, Army reserves when they have to go on trainings that can last a couple of weeks to a month to potentially a deployment? Because I'm just really worried about that kind of like the work-life balance between being a civilian and an Army, and still being in the Army, because even though I'm in school right now, it does feel like a full-time job, and balancing Army has come really tough when I have like these clinical times when it's, midterms, finals, or if I have like a sailing competition. So that's pretty much, one of the things I'm wondering about when I transition into being an entry level, new associate at wherever I end up.
Yeah, thanks, Genesis. If I could field this one, this is something I've worked really closely with for a long time. I think Jake, probably if you heard me talk at VOWS, I probably talked on this topic, is on corporate support of Guard and Reserve. And by the way, Barclays won the Secretary of Defense Freedom Award last year as the first non-US bank to win that, which is for support of the Guard and Reserve. And First Data won the Secretary of Defense Freedom Award as well. And so I just say that to say that this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And here's what I would say. You should get to know the companies that have won the Secretary of Defense Freedom Award, the Patriot Award, and look at the Military Times list, because they weigh heavily on companies that have great Guard and Reserve policies. So just get some of those companies on your radar that are going to understand this more. Second, I just need you to know this. You are legally protected from discrimination in the US. And I work at a UK company now. It's starkly different in the UK. If someone gets called to duty in the UK, it's up to their employer to decide if they want to let them go. Most employers don't, even those that support the military. In the US, you don't ever have to ask permission. You just have to tell your boss that you need to go. Now, does every employer understand that fully? Does every manager understand that fully? That's part of targeting these companies that are good at it, is I educate managers. I provide, anytime someone in my company goes on military leave, I reach out to the manager, I reach out to the employee, I work out with HR to make sure everyone sort of understands their role in that process. You may have to educate an employer, and you may have to help them to understand. You really hit on it though. There is a huge selling case, and I've seen it up close many, many times, is you're going to get all of this leadership training that they're not going to pay for. And you're going to keep bringing that back to the company and growing and developing and moving forward in that way. So you have a ton to offer. I've got to be honest, say not every manager understands that. The law says that should never make a difference in a hiring decision and a promotion decision. That's the law. There is some reality that not everyone understands that, and hopefully you can educate them, but also put in your sights those companies that are already doing a good job at this too. Jake?
Genesis, I'm actually going through this right now. So I work in the Air Force Reserves right now, and I was the first one ever to do this at FactSet, so it's been a learning experience for my managers. I can't say that they always understand, but I've been teaching them and helping them learn about my experience and why I need to split for 14 days every year for annual tour, or why I needed to leave for 2 weeks when COVID kicked off. And it wasn't even my real job. I think they had us building up field hospitals, and I came from a finance background in the military, but you drop everything and do whatever job they tell you to do. So the company will understand. You just need to go out there and educate them. Honestly, what Tiffany was saying, you should be looking at companies that are military friendly because it does matter. But it doesn't mean that you can't be the one to steer the company in the right direction. And that's kind of been my initiative at FactSet, and they've been amazing. And I can't say that every company is going to treat you the same way. I think I got very lucky, to be honest. But you can help blaze the path forward for that next reservist who wants to go into a certain go to a certain company, possibly, or you can look towards companies that already support reservists. Honestly, it's been an unbelievable experience. Most companies even let you double dip during this time. If I think Tiffany might know about this, where
Not most, some. It's still, you know, that USERA says companies do not need to pay you a dime while you're serving. That it does not say they need to pay you, but many have policies. And Jake, we should talk about benchmarking on some policies that are out there, but many have policies that will allow you to get paid or paid a portion of your salary or topped up on your salary. I know we do that because we never want somebody who's deployed to worry about paying their mortgage. We at least pay the difference, and in some cases pay all of it.
So I based this, I got some support from the guys at Morgan Stanley that I'd actually interviewed with. And they kind of gave me the background of how they handle everything. And it helped FactSet create their guidelines as I was going through this. So while I'm gone, they pay me my full salary. So it's been an unbelievable experience. I feel extremely lucky. They don't need to be doing that, but they are because they think it's the right thing to do, which is an amazing thing. So I'd reach out to those companies that you see that are under like the top 100 companies to work with for military times and ask the people there how they're treated. But don't write off companies that aren't on that list. You know, I think you bring a lot to the table, and, you know, you can do a lot for that company's image if you're the first one in the door. You can start that veterans group, show that they're actually embracing diversity. And, you know, diversity in the workplace only makes the company better to work at, only increases revenue. There are hundreds of studies that show this. So don't like rest your laurels on the fact that you need to go to a company that already has this in place. Yes, it will be easier. It was definitely extremely hard at the beginning when I was getting all this up and running. But there are tons of people from other companies that will be more than happy to support you. Even right now, I was going through the whole DoD skill bridge process. And I think it was the toughest process I had ever gone through to get veterans 6 months of free employment. And I didn't have all the materials that I needed, but I reached out to the networks I knew, the people I knew at companies that had already set this up, and I instantly had all the supplies. So yeah, don't write it off, Genesis. It's all going to work out no matter where you end up.
Okay, thank you all. We're closing in on our final hour. I'd like to do a quick round of everyone with your final thoughts. We'll start with you, Giovanni.
Well, like I said, you know, thank you for being a part of this. And, you know, if there's, you know, a couple takeaways, it's mobility is probably one of the best ways to keep your body lasting as resilient and as sustainable as possible. So I'm not saying strength training, you know, isn't important. We need to be strong, and we should be strong, but you've been strong your whole life. Strength actually is able to maintain a lot easier than mobility. So we lose mobility and then we lose quality of life. So if there's one thing I will say is, you know, mobility, stretching, flexibility should be a priority as you continue to age. And once again, you know, thank you to everybody for watching.
Before we conclude, I just actually want to make sure there is one question for Officer Haka. So perhaps we can ask that question and then you can conclude as well with your final thoughts, Officer. So the question is, the individual is a USMC veteran of the infantry sector. He's wondering how he translates that experience of 8 years, and do you see veterans with disabilities at a disadvantage when pursuing professions like social work, psychology, or law enforcement?
Wow, that's a great question that honestly, I do not have the answer to because I'm still currently serving and I'm not working in the civilian field yet. But anyhow,
I can handle just answer the disability question after. No, please continue with the rest of what you were going to share. Or yeah, I'll tackle that first. It depends. You know, disability is a really broad term here, and the fields that you're mentioning are a very broad term. I'm happy if you want to have a conversation. I put my email address in the chat, or an email to reach me. I'm happy to have an offline conversation and connect you with some resources. And the reason why I say it depends, you're talking about law enforcement. There are certain injuries that could interfere with certain types of law enforcement. There are certain physical or mental injuries that could interfere in certain parts of psychology. But as a general rule, people with disabilities are employed in all sorts of areas of social work, psychology, and in some areas of law enforcement, and depending on what the disability is. So I wouldn't let that on the front end think that it's going to eliminate you, but it is something to be curious about and research, and reach out to me. Let's have an offline conversation. So my rehabilitation counseling is all about disabilities and employment. I'm happy to talk more about that. So Officer Haka, please.
And your final thoughts, Tiffany?
Oh, yeah, my final thoughts are, stay really actively curious. It's not time wasted. And I echo what Giovanni said is, I have a great leader at my company that says, build in efficiency into your days. And in this particular COVID world that we're in, meaning get up and walk around, have phone calls, build those relationships, spend that time on it. It is not time wasted. So, stay actively curious and build relationships.
Officer Haka, your final thoughts?
Well, thank you very much. I thank you guys for inviting me. I think this was awesome. I feel like I got some new friends here, to be honest. Miss Tiffany, Mr. Jake, Mr. Giovanni, all you guys had some great info. I was just like mind blown, really quiet, just kind of going in the back, like, wow, this is awesome. The whole concept of networking, that's one of the things as recruiters, we are constantly networking, talking to anyone, everyone who we can. So that's the way, Jake. I got that takeaway from you.
And Jake, your final thoughts?
I think anyone who's watching this, since you're all from Sacred Heart University, you should know how important that network is and how Sacred Heart's going to take care of you going into the future. And you need to make sure that, you take advantage of that right now, but, reciprocate that in the future. Reach out to other veterans. It doesn't matter, even people who aren't veterans. Just take care of other Sacred Heart alumni. Everyone struggles to get in the door. It only takes 5 minutes of your time to take a quick phone call and give some great advice. So I highly recommend just reaching out to anyone and everyone you can. I know the hit rate's not going to be amazing. 1 in 5, maybe 1 in 10 people will respond to you, but it's going to be worth it. And it's never a waste of time to network or attempt to network.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And thank you all for your service. And thank you all for everything that you do. Sheila, your
Yes.
final thoughts.
Yes, gosh, I mean, having lived and worked in New York during 9/11, I am profoundly grateful for your service in defense of our freedoms. So heartfelt thanks to all of you for your service. God bless America. And thank you again, everyone, for being with us this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And we'll be in touch soon. And have a great evening.
Veterans Day.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.